Hey everyone, trust you all are well. We're gonna take a look at a race from earlier this week. Their route is in France. Douce France? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but if you look at the profile here, there's one KOM, a little bit of an up down, but I mean it's almost all just flat, 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 which is why this goes by pretty quickly. There's a profile here. And needless to say, this was a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. Let me turn the volume down a bit. I usually like these flat routes, but if we watch the start here, it is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So you can see a guy's going at 11, 8, 7 watts a kilogram, and I'm pretty sure every time I start, I'm usually just doing 4, 5, or 6. And you can see they're way up there, and I'm already just chatting with the camera, having some fun.
So yeah, you can see in the profile in the top right.
So I'm talking about the profile here, and it's already getting so strung out. And slowly my power on the left here is going to be increasing. We go into the red because there's a gap forming. Cool 46 seconds into the race. 5 watts a kilogram. I mean, come on. So it was a little bit scary, and that was a nice foreshadowing moment of what was to come, because there's a lot of attacks. I'm not sure if you watched the full unedited video of me during the race, but it's a race where 2 people are just kind of breaking apart the group over and over again. One of them is kind of at the front now in the green. I think that was Menive. And then the second one, you'll see attacks shortly. Garrett, I believe their name was. And those 2 riders just kind of take turns going one after another. So we're over the first hill. We're kind of all together. This isn't terrible. But, I mean, you can see a lot of this time was spent in the red. So I already had burnt probably a match, whether I liked it or not, just because I wasn't really paying attention. Over the second climb here. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Speed this up a little bit. Turn up the volume.
That's the was going. This is the last hill. And then it should be good recovery. Can't do hard for real.
And you can see Carter is already coming and saying, yeah, this is a crazy start. So it wasn't just me. Everybody was probably taken aback a little bit. And so now we see Garrett attacking again. Nothing crazy, but slowly just starts to pull away. You can see the group starts to kind of split a little bit. But when we're this early in a race, I don't usually follow attacks. I mean, kind of in general, I don't really follow attacks. And I break that mentality. But we were on a nice little downhill, and you can see that they're still gapping us. Nobody's really reacting too much, which is nice. Because it's almost like in the pro peloton, they like to kind of keep flyers out there so then the pace stays stable, and that's a little bit of what we were doing here. But everybody's gassed. I mean, for a 12-mile race to have 2 attacks like that within the first 3 miles, I mean, we're at, the first 7 minutes of the race? Not unprecedented, but I should have known that this meant that the ride was going to be much harder than I anticipated.
Bit of recovery here.
And so I could say, you know, we got a little bit of a recovery, and now we see a counter. So that's Maneve. Really strong rider. So I wouldn't call this an attack, but in a way, it was making everybody uncomfortable. I would have much preferred if we continued just to let Garrett stay out here as we approach this sprint. Because my pace, I mean, is okay. 4 watts a kilogram. That's just pretty uncomfortable for me. So you can see we're all coming together here. Oh, my bad. Let me go back to that. There we go. So we're at this sprint. And Maneve counters.
Usually like to push like this, but
Here he goes.
it's still like a bit.
So attack number 3 happening. So we were together for, I don't know, 30 seconds. And that again just makes me pretty uncomfortable. Speed things up. And we haven't even really had that KOM yet. So usually what I was expecting is, you know, a few attacks at the beginning and then things would pretty much stabilize until the KOM. And then we would have a pretty hard effort and the group would probably break up there. But this group is really quite strong. I don't think we really lose anybody this whole time. I mean, Maneve is out there on their own. Just riding hard, keeping the group away. We're kind of splitting a little bit. Nothing too terrible, though. Let's get up to the KLM. So there's really no counters at this point. So this was, you can see I'm kind of in that endurance zone around 200 watts. This is probably the easiest part of the whole race. He wants us to take a turn in the front. And I don't really know what Maneve was doing here, because we get to this climb. Garrett attacks with the feather. What I like to do for these climbs is I like to stay in the top 4 or 5 riders. And then as we get to the top, I usually like to ease. I don't like to attack over the top. And what that allows is me to be drafting with the top few riders through the hill, even though the draft doesn't do too much. But as you get to the top, the riders that were falling behind a bit, they'll push up, and then you can catch their draft too. So you have a little bit of time to recover. And this is a hard effort. You can see I'm in the red. This is 6.5, 5 watts a kilogram. I'm trying to hype myself up. But this group, we're all there. You know, we lost, I think, 1 rider in this.
Don't give up. Pop it at the top.
You can hear me saying I'm gonna use my draft up the top here.
Please.
And this is what I mean. So now you can see all the riders coming up behind. I'll use the draft, and Maneve is not too far ahead. So maybe they were just worried about getting dropped on the climb, or they just didn't have the power to push the last 8 miles. But Garrett will push up a little bit here. Not enough to break us apart, but they go out on their own and just keep the pace really high. So I'm still doing around 3 watts a kilogram. So it's not an attack, but keeping things uncomfortable, which I think was what Maneve and Gurrit were trying to do the whole race, just keep things really uncomfortable. I mean, it made the race a lot more fun. It was just so painful. Let's speed things up here. Back together, all at once. And I do believe we get another attack by Maneve. Yep, there he goes. I just... it was getting to the point where you could almost just predict it every single time. And I think that's why I start to follow the attacks, because I could just see it happening over and over again. We use our draft. And I really wish we would have just let him go. I mean, we keep jumping between 200 and 250 watts. 300 watts, so you can see the group is kind of splitting a little bit. But we all come back together, and it's the same story. We'll group, keep things chill, and there will be another attack. I believe Gurrit attacks this time, and this is when I start to counter. I don't know why. I think I was just being competitive. The problem is when you start to counter attacks, you are basically most likely giving up your chance to place in the top riders. Unless you follow attack and you stay away from the larger group. On a flat route like this, that's hard to do, but you can see Gurrit. And so I countered, and I hit almost 600, 700 watts. And I don't bring it back myself, but I kind of just stay out in these front 5 or 6 riders and don't really keep the draft. I mean, I'm pushing 350 watts. I mean, right here, this is something I would never do. I'm just leading this group back to these 2 riders, and then we get 1 or 2 guys pulling through. My heart rate's at 180. My max is about 192, so, I mean, realistically, this is as high as I would ever go. And then I pop this draft here, and now I kind of just really made my bed. Because when it comes to a sprint finish and I don't have a power-up, that's bad. There's nothing I'll be able to do to get a leg up on the competition. And now Maneve pushing up through, and I counter this attack. 400 watts. Pretty sure I go again. 550 watts. And so I kind of bring this one back. You know, I'm not pulling through and working with them, but it's enough to keep the group together. This guy goes through, and now the 2 riders will stick up front. But again, I'm holding almost 300 watts, just sitting out in no man's land. It's just stupid. I mean, it's kind of fun to race like this because usually I'm just trying to suck wheels and stay in the draft. And it's probably more exciting to watch rather than just trying to do as little work as possible. But again, heart rate is still at 180. And I'm just dying. Absolutely dying. Everyone's back together. More comments about how this is a strong group. 30 minutes in. I'm sure you can guess there's going to be another attack. And I call them out every single time too. It's just it was getting to the point where my legs just couldn't handle it. Mini, there he goes, from the back all the way through. And I mark it. You know, this time I'm only hitting like 400 watts, but I'm still holding above 250. And they can steer, so I can't really stay in their draft. And now the group comes up, and this is about when I was saying, okay, I really can't follow these anymore. So I kind of just let it go. Because nobody else pulled up with me right away, and I wasn't just going to continue leading out the group, even though at this point the damage was done to my legs and I'm just exhausted. Still sitting at 178 BPM, around 300 watts. I mean, come on. I am a punchy rider. I don't hold that high power for a long period of time. So let's slow things down a little bit for this last 0.8. And let's listen to my commentary here.
I wish I had power up. You gotta push. Point 5.
Half mile left. Heart rate's still at 180. And this is when I need that power up.
Come on. Oh.
So yeah, it was disappointing finish. I mean, the guy that won, 3.3 watts per kilogram, that's not bad. 3.2 in the top 5. So the opportunity was there for me to not ride as hard as I did. I mean, as far as the results, I mean, I didn't really even get that many PBs, but you can see how punchy this was. I mean, my highest power output of 680 watts was just countering these attacks. And that when you have your highest power output in the middle of the race, something kind of went wrong. So if we look at the Zwift power results, 3.6 in the 20-minute effort, you can see that's higher than I've done in a while. There was this coastal race a few weeks ago, and that was basically the same thing. And you can see my weight has been higher than usual just because it's bulking season. As far as everybody else, you know, it's always kind of fun to see when the B group is faster than the A group, significantly, like a minute faster, but they only had 4 riders, so what are you going to do? I mean, the guy that won, 12 watt per kilogram sprint, insane. That is very strong. But the two people that kept attacking got 8th and 9th. One of them doesn't have a heart rate monitor, so make of that. Oh, they don't even have a weight in there. So no heart rate monitor, no weight. Yeah. Not cheating, but, you know, these things to be questionable. And it was just surprising because these two riders were attacking all the time and they didn't even have that high of a watt per kilogram for the 20 minutes. So I think they did a really good job of going out there, making things uncomfortable, and then coming back to the group and drafting. I mean, my sprint was only 6.6 watts. I don't know. I wasn't really happy with this race, but as we go through this and you see how there's 7 attacks, 4 by Meniv, 2 by Manu, it was just uncomfortable. And yeah, it's just the way it went. So I think this was a good learning experience of a ride. It was fun. I definitely don't want rides to be like this because being a punchy rider and I use that power in the middle of the race, then I get to the end and I don't have anything left. But I think this review kind of helped me figure out what I need to do for my strategy during the race so I can actually place well, and hopefully that helped you too. So if you like this sort of thing, definitely keep in touch with the channel. I'll probably be doing a longer race in a couple days here, which should be fun. So have a nice rest of your day, guys. Cheers.